Welcome to the Live, Live, Play podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Kinsler, and today we have Jane Erbacher. I still think I got that wrong. Jane is literally the world's leading coach on rowing and is ski-erg for CrossFit athletes and functional fitness, and just anyone that's looking to improve their conditioning on those erg machines. Today's podcast, it just jumped straight in. I went to an hour and 20 minutes. It was like, I've never met Jane before. I've followed her since our guys did a seminar. And literally, it was the easiest flowing conversation. I actually didn't really get to ask questions, but every question that I wanted to ask in a roundabout way, we got to it. Jane's insights are amazing into coaching and how she works with people. Definitely grab a coffee and enjoy this show. I thoroughly enjoyed recording it with Jane, and I hope to be doing some more stuff with Jane in the future. You're listening to the Live, Live, Play podcast. Good morning. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I got you. How are you?
Awesome. That's so good. Sorry,
Good.
I'm in my pajamas.
That's okay.
Stop eating apple.
It is early for you. It's evening for us, but that's what it is. How's off? Sorry about the other day.
No, I'm so sorry. I woke up and I was like, oh my God. Because I remember we threw around Thursday and Friday and I just got confused. I'm sorry.
No, and I know, because obviously you're on the other side of the world, so it's just hard to find the right times that work for everybody, and it's just one of those things.
Totally.
So yeah, obviously I was due to go to the course, but I couldn't have other things on, so we sent Lee and Dave in our place, and they did nothing but rave about it. And they came back and goes, awesome. We've been doing it all wrong, and I was like, okay. Are we doing anything right? It's like, no, not really. I was like, yeah.
It's so funny because I only created the course because that was me. I went to a rowing gym and I was like, what do you mean? I was like, every cue I've ever given is actually wrong.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, but they're just rowers. What do they know about fitness? And then I started doing because I'm obsessed with biomechanics. And I was like, I think they're right. I think we're all doing it wrong.
Because I remember being taught, I was taught in a CrossFit gym back in 2008, 2009. It was like, the dampener is always on 7 because that mimics the water power, and you're always on 7. You never change your dampener. And I was like, okay. So I never, and people would ask me why. I would because that's what I was told. I never asked why back then. It was like, you row at 7.
That's what you do. So and it's so funny because there's so many really good justifications for it. But then when I started to learn about dust and airflow, I was like, oh my God, a 7 isn't a 7. I was like, my brain is my little pea-sized brain that now has to deal with physics can't take this.
Yeah. I was, and even now, because Lee personal trains me, and, when he puts you in a skier, you want, if I'm trying to do calories and he's like, technique, and I'm like, oh, but I can burn more energy and get my calories doing quicker, and I can get back, I can leave the machine. He's like, no, do it quicker. But it has made a difference. Now it's hard getting our guys to change because they're, change doesn't come easy for a lot of people.
Totally.
But it's good. Our kids are loving it though. Our kids
That's
doing
so good
because we run a big kids program here, so they're loving the
the guys were telling me that
the rowing technique. So so their bad habits will be easily fixed because it's just
exactly. And kids are like, oh, it's so much fun because they're so used to learning.
Yeah.
Whereas adults come in and they're like, I haven't learned in a very long time. Why are you teaching me?
Yeah, and I'm getting why are you changing the dampener? You've always said. I was like, I know.
I was wrong. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is really funny because when I was developing the ski course, like, because there's barely any information out there on how to use the
Yeah.
ski erg, I did a lot of work with Olympic lifting coaches and
Yeah.
gymnastic coaches, like, so people who have their own sport that coach CrossFitters, and like learnt what language they use to, because when you start learning about weightlifting and Olympic lifting, you realize, oh, so the way I was doing it, like, that made sense to me wasn't exactly right. But
Yeah.
it's funny because that people are really happy to be told they're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas with the rower, it's like, what do you mean now I have to stop and like slow down? And it's just funny. And I think it's because of when with Olympic lifting or weightlifting or gymnastics, we've followed a really clear progression.
Yeah.
Like, we've gone, okay, everybody can do a handstand push up on the first day. So you're going to do this option. Then you're going to go to this option. And then you're going to go to this option. But in our brain, we're like, well, everyone can get on the rower and row.
Exactly. And I say this about running. I said, were you ever trained to run? They're like, no. I said, you need to know how to run. And they're like, yeah, but I can just go out and run. I said, I get it. I hear you.
Yeah.
But you run really badly.
Yeah.
It's really bad the way you run. It's actually painful to watch you.
I was running with my friend who's a physio the other day, and she's like, have you ever done any training to learn how to run properly? And I was like, nah, I can't be bothered. And she's like, Jane, your whole life is about teaching people to do things right so they don't develop a dysfunction. Yeah. And she's like, run really badly. I was like, no.
but it is that way. You gotta peel everyone. And I go, okay, so I know you've ran a marathon, or you row and you've done competitive rowing, or you do CrossFit and you've done the big like 500-meter sprints and your calories are great. But now we're going to bring you all the way back to the very basics and change everything. And it's like, no, it's just, no, I don't want to. It's like, yeah, no, but it's going to make you better long term.
Totally.
Like, no.
Yeah.
And like we made a change 2 years ago in our gym. We went from the high bar back squat to the low bar back squat. Yeah. Because the coach we worked with made me understand that this is more beneficial to the average person, not people that want to be Olympic weightlifters.
Totally.
And for 4 months there, everyone gave it out. It's like, oh, it doesn't feel right. I don't like this. I mean, everyone had to go back to the bar, but then everyone jumped above their old weights, and then everything else went up, and we had less back problems in the gym. I'm like, but it was 4 months of hell, because I was adamant. I was like, we're doing it this way, and we were not doing it any other way.
It is so good you're sticking to it. Like, it's so good. It's so hard. And sometimes you just want to go, you know what? Just do it your way. Like, I'm doing this programming for this new gym that's Pilates and rowing. And I tell you what, when I first heard about it, I laughed for maybe like a week at the concept. I was like, what is this gimmick? And anyway, then they gave me complete free reign with the row programming to train all the trainers to like stay on their backs and to write all the programming. And so it's really interesting because the whole market is Pilates. So all these Pilates people are now rowing, and none of them have built up any bad habits. So it's like our whole first wave of followers are non-rowers who are like, I don't do cardio, I don't do rowing. And so we're like teaching them everything without them having developed any bad habits. And it's funny, it's actually a dream. But then we have like come in that's like Pilates. And then they're like, they love rowing, and they're the one in the room that they're having to like, these Pilates instructors are having to like try and coach. But it's been really funny because every other gym, you actually have to spend, like what you're saying with the low bar back squat, I completely agree with you on the normal people, but it's like you have to spend months making them do worse than what they think they can do to make them do better.
Yes.
The other day I ran a seminar in a CrossFit. Yeah. Ran a seminar in a CrossFit gym the other day. And I was telling them that their limit is what they believe. Like, it's what they believe they can't do, but it's also what they believe is their best. Like, your PB is only the best you've ever lifted doing it a certain way. I used to say that's actually your PB. Like, you could actually be lifting 50 kilos more if you do it a different way, but you have to take it backwards.
Yeah. It is. It's crazy. And I know, and I love going to seminars, going in and going, if I had went, I would have been, don't know much about the skier. I got the rower down.
Yes.
I would have went in cocky. But like, and then it would have clicked, and I would have been like, and then and then go, all right, now I have to learn. And I would have been like,
funny.
oh, yeah, she's got to pick me up for my rowing technique. Not, but like normally it's like, oh yeah, it's in a bad way. I remember doing my first ever seminar in CrossFit. And I got picked out for squatting because it was the worst squat out of 100 people. I was like, oh, that's great. Cheers.
I always
Appreciate
get picked up for squatting. Yeah. You're like, hey everybody, come to my gym.
Yeah. It was that was a humbling moment. But I love but that's the education of like these machines have like come out. Like I know the rower's been out for ages, the ski erg, and every gym has them now. And again, they're not being utilized to the best of their ability. People are just kind of crushing people on them, and it's all about like how much can you feel like you can make yourself feel really bad in the ski or a rower if you wanted to. You need like the one thing, and the one thing I did really like was when the lads came back. The first thing I said, "So is this allowed?" The big swinging arms, because Dave did that, and they were like, "No." I was like, "Yeah, I knew it." Because it didn't look right. It didn't look right. I didn't agree with that. Oh, well, CrossFitters do it. I said, it didn't. There's something about that I don't like.
It's so funny that even took off. Like, it's like, because the guy who came up with it, because Jim Jones, I don't know if you follow Jim Jones, but they're like, they were the first people. So Concept 2 gave them ski ergs in like 2010. So like, and they're such meatheads. And they all got on and they're like, this is obviously all upper body. So they developed the butterfly technique so that you could re-engage your lats. And I'm like, the very theory behind the technique doesn't make sense. But yeah, you're like, I knew it. The ski erg's funny though, because I definitely find it easier to change somebody's ski erg technique. They're not emotionally attached to it. And it feels miserable usually. Like they're like tired at 40 seconds. But the rower, oh my God, people have such an emotional attachment to what they've been doing. It's like that zero sunk fallacy or whatever it is. You know, like somebody goes into a casino and they lose like $100,000 and they keep playing because they've lost so much already. They can't walk out. And it's the same thing. It's like, but I've invested 10 years into rowing like this. Like that 10 years has been a waste if I change it now. It's like, no.
Yeah.
It's funny. One of the really important things for me is to go and train in a gym that's hosting me for seminars leading up to the seminar, so they can see that I firstly am not good at everything and really like being coached. So then they can see that they don't need to worry if they're bad at what I teach. Like it's okay not to be good at everything as a coach. I think a lot of coaches think they have to be the absolute best at everything.
Well, that's it. I wouldn't be like, I'm mechanically broken from basketball for years, and I wanted to be Olympic weightlifter, and like I should have just been a powerlifter because it would have been easier for me, but I didn't have the mechanics or mobility or the motor pattern. But sure, well, I understand it and I can coach it, but like my lifts wouldn't be impressive, but I can help you do it better. And I don't think like that whole thing. And in sport, it's different. In sport, it's the best players don't really become coaches, but in like CrossFit and lifting, it's just assumed that like you shouldn't work with that person if they're not the best in the world. I'm like, most people that are the best in the world are kind of narcissistic, so they don't really want to help other people. They're all about making them number one, and they can't see. If you're naturally gifted to be good at something, you can't see the struggles other people have, and you're like, well, just do it this way, and you don't understand why they're not able to do it. As a coach, I find that's crazy. I do love going into seminars and coming out going, you're still learning. There's never going to be a day where you're like, I'm done. I got it nailed down.
Totally. One of my favorite things someone ever said to me was, what kind of coach am I if I can't make you better than I am? And I was like, yes. Yeah, I get so much more excited, especially with females. I'm like, if a girl can crush me on the rower or ski, I just get so excited. I'm like, oh my God. Like it's like there's this girl that came to my seminar a couple months ago in New Zealand, and she did a 1:30 500 meter on the weekend at the New Zealand Championships. 1 minute 30 500 meter for a girl is like 2 seconds off the world record.
That's impressive.
I was like, that is really fast. Like I like walk around with like a 1:35 thinking I'm like king of the kids, and I'm like, that's 5 more seconds faster. Like,
That's a big 5 seconds.
Yeah, get off the road, have a drink.
Oh, she's that good, I won't like her.
Yeah.
If you get a score that good and you're in bits, I'm proud of you. If you get off and it's like, what's next? I don't like you. This is
Yeah, like you could have gone faster. So funny.
Knowing in your head you'll never achieve that score, you're like, damn it.
So funny. But I tell you what, that seminar in Ireland was so much fun.
Yeah.
Like the Irish culture and sense of humor is like my favorite. Like it's like everyone can laugh at themselves. Like it's just like it was such a funny seminar. Like that day, even just the way people introduced themselves, it was just like there was such a great atmosphere in the room.
Yeah, it's different from the kind of Americanized kind of, hey, yeah, high five. Just what was like, all right, how's it going?
Totally. Yeah. Like, did you see what I like in all the American ones? It's really like they have to really sell themselves when they're introducing themselves.
Yeah.
Like it's to tell the room all the best things about them and all that kind of thing. And at the Irish one, it was like who can make the most fun of themselves was kind of like.
Did Lee win? He's very good at that. Yeah.
Like, yeah, you won, definitely.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. Like I laughed for hours that day. It was so funny.
But that's the stuff you want. Like I know, like I've known Dave for a few years, and then I know some of the other guys that were there, Andy Meyer from Movements and stuff like that. Like these are really good guys. And it's just there's a nice little community of coaches in Ireland, and again, everyone's kind of looking to get better at everything they do and every aspect of what they do. And I just like that environment. And yeah, there's always a few people that don't want to learn or are too big for their boots or whatever. They're too good and don't associate. But like, again, the way I look at things is if you're going to go and study anything, even if you didn't enjoy, like I've been to seminars I didn't really enjoy, but there's always a learning curve. Well, I'll definitely not do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's something you can take away, but there's always a learning curve. And like as I said, I would have went in there going, "Got the rower, man. It's my thing. I'll go," and then I would have been like, "Oh crap!" But I know exactly. I would have been so cocky about that. I wouldn't have put my hand up for skier, but I would have put my hand up for rower. And then when I got back, the lads were like, "I was like, oh shit," and now I'm trying to be like, "Oh yeah. Well, that makes so much sense."
Totally. That is so funny. That's so funny.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. No, I did the exact same thing when I went to this rowing gym and I was doing ergs. I had this like 60-year-old woman who weighed like 50 kilos next to me. And I was like, I got this lady. She beat me in a 2K. And I was like, okay, I'm doing something wrong. I'm like, teach me everything you know now. So good.
So we should get into the show.
Yes.
I'm going to keep most of what we said because I think that's gold.
Totally.
But I do have questions. Because I want to put you on the podcast. So obviously I sent you over what we're kind of talking about. When I researched you, there were some fun things that we have in common, and I'm looking forward to getting to them.
Great.
But to start off, for people that don't know, I don't want to get your name wrong. So it's Jane
Erbacher.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
it's German, but we're not German. We're like convicts from like centuries ago.
Well, aren't all Australians convicts at some point?
Yes, exactly. And I've got a bit of Irish in me as well. And I don't know if you can tell that the tinge of ginger and like when I was at my seminar, I was like, I posted all about it on Instagram and I literally had like 20 people write to me and go, is this like a family reunion you're at? I was like, you are not the first person to say that. But so.
Well, Dave is tall and he's got red hair and there's a few. We have that kind of pasty skin. A lot of the Irish guys. Dave has it. The Dave that was with Lee's pasty. Andy's not the tan guy. Yep,
it was a family reunion. I was there pretending it was rowing and skiing. It was actually like a family reunion. But yeah, I think that they pronounce it way more fancy in Germany. I think they say like Erbacher. But like in Australia, you can't pronounce something like that. Like everyone would be like. So Erbacher is fine.
So Jane Erbacher, and you have a company called Renegade.
Well, I do, but it's like I never actually like pursued Renegade. I like got the name and I was like planning on like making waves with Renegade. And it's really
Yeah.
funny, the whole business name thing I've struggled with so much because I come up with different names for what I do all the time.
Yeah.
And then I always just keep following through with my own name. So right now, I guess you'd say that my business name is the Projects Method,
Okay.
because that's what I pay tax under. So I guess a thing. But Renegade was the movement I was trying to create this year.
Yeah.
We do things a little bit differently because I love people coming to my seminars and teaching me stuff. Like I
Yeah.
don't want people to be like clones of each other. I want like people to be open-minded, critical thinkers. I want them to
Yeah.
question what I teach, and I want them to be a little bit of their own individual. And that's the kinds of people I want to be surrounded with.
Yeah.
People like that. I want people questioning what I teach, and
And that's
applying
good
it in
because
their way.
it keeps you on your toes, and it's not
Totally.
like oh, just this cultish kind of, well, you tell me what to do and I'll go follow it. It's you want to be
Exactly.
questioned, and I think that's a huge aspect in coaching and developing what you're
Yeah.
developing, and it's probably why it was such a popular, because our guys raved about it.
Yeah.
So, and I know Dave McConkey, like obviously he's had you twice now, is it? He's had you
Yeah.
over,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
definitely
Twice.
positive vibes there.
Mhm.
Um, but that's a really good way of coaching people, because
Yeah.
you want to constantly learn, rather than, well, this is how it should be done and this is the method and there's there's no flaws in what we do.
Totally.
But what kind of got you, how did you find a passion for rowing and skiing and then coaching and seminars? Like, where did that come from?
Totally. Good question. So I've worked in fitness for like 15 years. So when I was a teenager, I played a lot of basketball and loved it. So have always loved sport. But then I remember I went to like the local YMCA with my sister because she was trying to lose some weight. And I was like, this is really fun. I find this kind of fun. It's like being at like, a playground. And I just got really into it. I got really into nutrition. And I then started hilariously teaching aerobics. And what I absolutely loved with teaching aerobics when I was like 17 years old is how much you could make somebody who walked into the room having a really bad day leave really excited about their life. And I was like, oh, this is like a really influential time in people's day. I don't know if you can hear my dog, by the way. She's snoring. She's like,
No. She gets
she's
lying.
pretty funny. I'm going to get her on so you can see her in a second, but she's absolutely hilarious. But yeah, so I was like, okay, I actually really like that I can use my like positive energy to make somebody else's day better.
Yeah.
So as corny as that is, I genuinely started to get really addicted to that. And I was like, okay, I want to do it in a way that's more scientifically sound than aerobics. And so
Aerobics is scientifically sound. I was a very good aerobics instructor. I'm from
were
the
you really?
air. I was, yeah. I had my own freelance aerobics company
Stop
when I first started my fitness
it.
career. Yeah,
That is amazing.
called Body Balance, and I taught step aerobics and freelance aerobics and bums, thumbs, and thighs, all that. But
Love
that's
it.
what
So
it was. And people
that
was
is,
like, all these new coaches, you don't know.
I don't know.
Don't knock
And,
it till you try it. It was very good. We even
and
I had a partnered up friend, and we had design, because you have to design your routines and you have to
love it.
design your
Yep.
music for your routines. And we had a
Yep.
class that would intersect each other without hitting. Now, the problem is that you needed everyone that was an aerobics instructor to do it, because the average
Yep.
Joe were not coordinated. But oh yeah, I was all in on aerobics. Yeah.
Totally. And
And it
it's so
was fun.
funny. Aerobics made me better at basketball because
Yeah.
it taught me fast feet. It also like when you have to build a routine as an instructor, when you have to build a routine, match it to music, it's very mathematical. So
Yeah.
it's like really good for your brain. And when you're in the class, it's really good for your brain to have to remember what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
As an instructor, you have to develop serious skills to create an energy in a room. And so I actually think, like, I often laugh when people say to me, oh, how are you so good at leading a room full of like strangers. And I absolutely trace it back to aerobics.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, it is such a weird thing when you think about it. Like, you're in this little space and then you make people move and then you make people face each other and all this kind of stuff. And it's so like, I think you're right. Like, people who knock it that have never tried it, it's like you're missing out.
But yeah, you had to have your beats. You had to know the move, bounce to the music correctly. You couldn't just put on any song. I would love to get most coaches now that have never done it and go, oh, well, I can coach a room of 20. Go teach aerobics.
Totally.
Let me see what happens. You will mess that up. It's gonna be disastrous. In all fairness, I wasn't upset when I moved away from aerobics. I did my day of like aquarobics, spinning. I did it all. But that was the fitness industry when I became qualified. That's what you did. And
there was no CrossFit.
Yeah. It was aerobics.
There wasn't any. Yeah. And I think it's really cool. It's really fun when you meet somebody who's been in the industry that long that they understand, like, no, this is the progression that we've actually seen. Because like, there's nothing against people that have come in the last few years, but it's like, it has been really fun to be a part of all the waves.
Yeah.
Like, it's, and have to adapt. And the reason I like what we were saying before about how I want critical thinkers, like, exercise science is constantly updated. Like, what we thought a week ago, a year ago, 10 years ago is different to the information we have access to now.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I was teaching exactly what I was teaching in my seminars 3 years ago, I'd be teaching the wrong thing. Like, exactly. And it's really important to be humble enough to go, you know what, we actually know better now. So I'm going to teach you what I know now. And if it takes somebody in my seminar to like alert me to that, then so be it. Like, it doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm talking about. It means that I have my greatest, like, what is most important to me in a seminar is that people walk out with education. So it's like, if that doesn't come completely from me, I'm okay with that, because I'd prefer coaches to walk out of there and be able to deliver the best education they can to their clients.
And I think the quality of a good coach is that you can put your hand up and go, yeah, I was wrong. Like, if we say, like, when I first started coaching people in weights, I was getting them results. I wasn't, looking back, I wasn't hurting them. I was doing a job that I knew. There's nothing technically wrong with that, but we know now how to do it so much better, so much more efficient, and give them more bang for their buck.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I wouldn't do it now, but back then I say, like, it wasn't wrong then.
Totally.
For me, it'd be wrong to teach now. But then it was a learning curve. But I put my hand up. Well, yeah, I did teach that. I used to think the Smith machine was the best exercise for squats.
Yep. Yeah. Same. Yeah.
I used to think that step aerobics was the future, and my whole life career would be based off that.
Totally.
And it wasn't. Okay.
Yeah. Whoops. Yeah. No. So, like, I did that in my early 20s, and then I decided, because I'd taken some time off university. I don't know if you call it uni there. We call it uni here. Some time off, and then decided I wanted to be a physiotherapist. And so I went and did an arts degree. So, like, liberal arts, it might be what you call it, and health sciences, with the core intention of being a physiotherapist. And then I decided at the end of my 4-year double degree, that's not what I wanted to do. And I got accepted into law. So I wanted to do something in human rights. And at the same time, I had spent the years that I was studying going over to New York and just analyzing the fitness industry. So just seeing where they were up to, because Australia is probably 2 or 3 years behind New York. And so I was like, let's see where they're up to. Like, what is it that they're into? And this was around 2011, 2012. And there was CrossFit gyms popping up a little bit. And there was this, like, catchphrase in the fitness industry was like functional cross training. And it was like the kind of jungle gyms, like there were monkey bars and there were rowing machines. And I was like, this is pretty cool. And so in 2013, I decided to open a functional cross training gym of my own in Melbourne. And, AstroTurf, the multicolored kettlebells, the monkey bars, the rig, and of course rowers and assault bikes. So, which were then like the Schwinn Airdyne. Anyway, I got really into the screen on both pieces of equipment. I got really into not being able to cheat I got really into my effort being displayed in front of me for everybody else to see. And I thought for a while there, because rowers were tall, and I'm like 173 centimeters, so I'm not actually that tall, but I'm a tall girl, tallish girl, and I could create some pretty good numbers on the rower. So I started to attach some serious like identity and confidence to the rowing machine. And then I started to realize when I was coaching other people that if they could see on the screen in front of them their effort being rewarded, it really spurred them on to do more. Just like, you know, when you give somebody a deadlift bar, teaching the right technique, they're like, oh my God, what do you mean? Like you give a female a deadlift bar and they lift like 50 kilos. They're like, you mean I lift 50 kilos? Like, and it's like the average woman, if they can walk out and they've lifted 50 kilos, they're like, oh my God. And then, you know, they get to 100 and it's like, whoa. And the rower started to become the conditioning tool that gave them the same kind of thing. Like, what do you mean I did a 2-minute 500 meter? And all they know is what you've associated value with. Like, it's like if you say, wow, 2 minutes per 500 meters is really good, they believe 2 minutes per 500 meters is really good. And they go home and tell their family, and then they can't wait to come back to training. And so I started to realize that the rower was such a cool tool to use for confidence building. And so I've never rowed at school, none of that. And then I still remember a conversation with my business partner where she goes, you're only good at the rower because you have such big thighs. And I was like, dagger to the heart. It was like a double whammy. It was like, you're not good at rowing and you have big thighs, like something most women don't want to hear. Like, and I was like, oh. So then I started researching. I'm like, I remember Google searching, do good rowers have big thighs? And anyway, and then I started seeing that these rowers were all really, really, really tall. And I was like, that's it. I am teaching something in the gym that I'm really enjoying. And I don't know the technique. I just know that I like it and I'm okay at it. So I went and joined a rowing gym and was training with all these 60-year-olds who were just absolutely crushing me. And I remember the first cue they gave me was keep your toes down. And I was like, why would I keep my toes down when these handy straps are here to pull me back in? Like, why? Anyway, and then they were like, it's better for your back. And I was like, And so then I went home, I remember, and started Googling, like, why would flexing my toes up in a seated position hurt my back? And I started to learn about the overactivation of psoas and then the connection to the back. So I'm just obsessed with biomechanics. And I was like, oh my God, like if somebody's on the rower and let's say they're doing 30 strokes per minute and you've got them on there for 5 minutes, that's 150 reps you're getting somebody to do just a little bit wrong. And I think that the common misconception about the rower is that it doesn't cause injury because it doesn't cause sudden impact, but it's like it's accumulated dysfunction. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing that to people and I'm yelling at them to go faster and do it harder. And it's like, so the load and intensity comes from the load is the intensity. So it's not a heavy weight like a deadlift, but the accumulated dysfunction. And I just remember sitting there and being like, if that tiny detail I'm getting wrong, like what else am I actually getting wrong? So I spent a whole year traveling around Australia because at that time I was also running a podcast. That was my jam. So I'm a big podcast fan. Cool. And I started to train with as many like ex-Olympic rowers, rowing clubs that I could find and just learning something from everybody. Because what I found is as an adult learning from a rower, they start teaching you like you're an adult, not like you're a child. Like if you put a 12-year-old on an erg or in a boat, you're going to teach them the fundamentals from the ground up. And I know you have a big kids program, so you understand this completely. Whereas an adult, it's like the assumption is you have the knowledge that you would have gained if you'd been rowing your whole life. That was what I found from the rowing community. And I was like, why is everybody teaching an adult like they're coming in at like level 8 rather than coming in at level 0? Like, why isn't anybody teaching them where they sit on the seat or where their feet go or where they go? Like, why isn't anybody teaching them the importance of staying on the seat? Like the little tiny intricacies that you would teach a 12-year-old in a learn to row program. So I realized that there was a huge, huge disconnect between the rowing community and the fitness community, and no exceptional rowing coaches were actually teaching it to the fitness community or CrossFitters. And so I created the rowing Project Row because I wanted to be that link. Like I'd spent 15 years being a coach and being in the fitness community, and then I developed this new skill that I wanted to make available to the fitness community, which I was a part of. And so I'm very clear on, I'm not a rower. I teach rowing to GPP, CrossFit. And I've found that I have a real head start on a lot of rowers in my ability to connect rowing with all the other aspects of CrossFit, GPP, general training. Not just like, no one that comes to my seminar is like, I am going to the Olympics for rowing. Like, and if they are coming to my seminar, I'm like, why are you here? Or they're there for as a coach. It's people who genuinely that want to feel better on the erg, improve their times, not get off and fall over, be able to get off and do a handstand push-up, like do all these kinds of things where the rowing is a piece of the puzzle that they're trying to build.
But
so that's how it came
about. But that's something like it's a keen eye. For as a coach, you seen there was a disconnect. Like even when the guys, because we had Dave and Lee coach us at a staff training then, and we got in our rowers, obviously I knew that I was going to be making changes. And the first thing was straps round the midfoot, dug in, it's around the big knuckle of your big toe. I was like, doesn't make sense. What are you talking about? And the Dave was like, you got to keep your big toe down. And I'm like, but that's the relax. And as you were saying there, that little thing, accumulating dysfunction. I'm like, no. Okay, I'll listen to you. I'll play along.
Totally.
As soon as you're not in the room, I'm going to go back to my way. And then I start rowing. I start feeling like, because there was a definite different feeling when I drove into the plate, because I had more. It's like squatting. It's saying someone stay in your heels. It's the worst thing you could do. If their toes come off the floor, and they have a bar on their back, where are they going? They're going on their ass. And that is exactly the same thing. Or deadlift with your toes off the floor. You're not going to do that. That is the worst thing you could possibly tell someone to do.
Totally.
But then, like you said, I was not associating myself with actual mechanics. And I'm sure you're just on a rower.
Yeah.
I'm just rowing. Sure, strap yourself in and go. Like, but there's, and you said it earlier, is like, people will train to do all this, but then you put them on a rower, you make them go run. It's like, it's just rowing, it's just running, it's cycling. There's you don't need to know anything. It's just get on and go. And you do need to know an awful lot if you want to be more efficient. And I think like when you work with high level, like if you work with a high level coach for like Olympics in any sport, they automatically assume that you're going to them because you know what you know. And they'll they'll just go, right, this is what we're doing, go do it. We're looking for these results. Whereas what you're doing is that you're the in-between going, no, actually, we need to, you never know fundamental. We have to go through fundamentals to get there. And because you do that, and just from my own experience with coaching kids and coaching our adults, is I find that I can relate more to people because I can make them understand the importance of this is why we want to do something.
Totally.
And you can do it that way by all means. But if we do it this way, it's going to work. It's going to work better and it's safer. And I'm always about being safe, pain-free. Yeah. Like I'm not trying to build Olympians or anything along those lines. But it makes so much sense in the head of like how you're doing. But again, there was always, even with me, I still have that, as there's always that little bit. I won't do that. And then when you do it, you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Like maybe I'm the unicorn. Maybe I don't need to follow these rules.
Of course, exactly. But you went around. You start working with rowing. You start figuring all that out. And then how did the concept created the skier? How did you find that when you first started kind of messing around with the skier and figuring that one out?
I hated it. So it was really funny. So I went through the whole process to become certified with Jim Jones. So basically Jim Jones is this group in Salt Lake City who have a lot of overlap with CrossFit in terms of their like programming and methodology. But the big difference between Jim Jones and CrossFit is there's no gymnastics in Jim Jones. sorry, wow, so many gyms. No gymnastics in Jim Jones, and very little attention to detail in Olympic lifting. It's really just like, rah. Huge emphasis on power endurance, climbing, outdoor training. But you'd walk into a Jim Jones gym and it looks very much like a CrossFit gym. Anyway, I became really obsessed with Jim Jones between about 2014 and 2017, and went through the whole process because I really loved that their underlying message, well, their catchphrase is the mind is primary. So your body will follow whatever your mind tells it to do or not do.
Yeah.
And they're big believers in like effort is everything. So not as much about like, you know, following a process and, you know, ironing out imbalances. It's really about, this is all about how much you can actually give, which is a very addictive style of training. And since I turned 30, I realized that I'd far prefer to be the person that follows a process. And like, you know, with Olympic lifting, I love that I was on like a broomstick for so long, nailing each position and understanding why each position was important, even though now I'm lifting like 3 kilos more in my snatch than I can do with terrible technique. But it's like, stick to a process and not just go in and grit, like fight for something, feels so much better. But I was really fixated on Jim Jones, and basically to get through each level of the certification, you have to do certain physical tests. And one of their really important physical tests is the sub 7 minute 2K row and a sub 7 minute 2K ski. And then once you become certified, you have to be able to do a sub 650. This is for men. And for women, it's sub 8 minute and sub 750. And so I was like, I knew that to get through level 2, I had to do a sub 8 minute 2K row. So, and then when I went to level 3, I had to do a sub 8 minute 2K ski. And I was like, the row, I was like, I'm all over. Love this. Been researching for ages. Love it. Already teaching rowing seminars. The ski erg, I was like, that machine is the dumbest machine I've ever been on. I hate it. I feel miserable every single time. My triceps feel like they're going to pop out of my arms. I can't seem to get it to move anywhere near as fast as the rower. But a huge thing as well, we did at Jim Jones, because I'm not a part of it anymore, but it relays. It is like every time you use a ski erg, it's for a relay. So it's like you're doing 12 to 15 strokes, teamwork, all that kind of stuff, which just coming from basketball, if you put me in a team, I'll train so much harder than if I'm by myself. Anyway, so I was like, okay, I'm okay in a relay. I'll be fine for the 2K. Went there, bombed so badly on the 2K. Like, I was the last person to go, and everybody in the room, because I was like, I think I got like 8:24 or something. So it was really obvious, like pretty early on, that I wasn't going to hit it. And they've all gone from like, go Jane, to like this kind of like awkward silence. So everyone's just like watching for 8 minutes. And it was like, I still can feel how bad I felt during it. And I remember I let go of the handles and I was like, I am never getting back on one of those in my whole life. Never. Like, I didn't do the whole like stoic, I will walk away from this and I'll be better and I'll learn. And I was like, no, like if I can swear right now, I won't. But like, I was saying all the swear words in the world, and I was like, never using the ski erg again. That's actually dumb. Like, I don't know what idiot created that. And and then I remember, like, it was about 5 weeks later, hadn't stepped back on a ski erg, still had PTSD about it. And one of my friends, who's like, he's one of the most highly regarded trainers in Australia, and he's like got 100% success rate in Spartan. So every Spartan race he's ever entered, he's won. And all across Asia Pacific, this guy's amazing. He went to the Olympics like triathlon. He's like, I like totally fangirled him at a Spartan race, and now he's one of my best friends, which is like, there's a big thumbs up to being such a creep. But he asked me to cover his gym, and he lives up in, believe it or not, we have an alpine region in Australia, a very small one where people ski. Anyway, he has a gym up there and asked me to cover it. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, I'm doing this thing, like Project Row. And he's like, I don't care what you do, just be there. And I was like, okay. So I ran Project Row, and it was one of the first seminars I actually ran properly. And my now fiance came to that. So that's how we met, my seminar. And the next day, this guy rings me up and he goes, what did you do to everybody last night? And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, I've literally got like 30 text messages about people saying, we've all been rowing wrong. This was the best. You have to do this. And then like, it was amazing. And he goes, so tonight you need to do the same thing on the ski erg. You can do that, right? And I was like, can't let this guy down. And I just went, yeah. It's like, yeah. hang up the phone. I honestly went to my laptop and went, how to ski erg correctly. People are going to be listening to me tonight and they've got really high expectations. And I was like, and honestly, like, how does Project Ski not fit into Project Row? Like, I had to get another project. And I spent that afternoon doing like, it felt like a high school project. Like, I was like studying and I was like looking at the one video concept tour had released, and like there was nothing out there on the ski erg, like anything out there, because this was like, you know, end of 2015. No one was using it right.
Yeah.
It wasn't in CrossFit yet. It was literally used for Nordic skiing, or it was used at Jim Jones with butterfly technique. And I was like, I remember drawing like a continuum, and I was like, at one end I had Nordic skier, and I even drew like a little skinny stick figure. And then at the other end I had meathead, and I drew like a really big jacked dude. And I was like, why are these people using it so differently? And like neither looks right. And I remember I decided that I was going to create the GPP technique, and so find somewhere in the middle, like take methodology from Nordic skiing and then take methodology from the meatheads and create the person in the middle that's the normal person that doesn't want to get injured. Because you look at the meathead technique, and what everybody was saying was they had golf elbow, so in here, from there. And they also had really sore shoulders using the ski erg. And then you look at Nordic skiers, and the number one injury is lower back injury from how much hip flexion there is. And I was like, well, what I know is with everything I've created with the rowing technique, it's all about making people who sit all day safe when they train, basically, because that's who I work with, people who sit down all day or hunch over their phones. So I'm like, okay, well, the very Nordic technique with internally rotated shoulders and hip flexion is bad for those people because they're already in that position. So I was like, so I went outside, and I remember I started doing ball slams, and I was like, I think the ball slam is the ski technique. And I remember being like, I can't be the person who came up with this. Like, I cannot be the person who's figured this out. Like, there are so many people in the world way smarter than me. And that first ever Project Ski was, no joke, an hour and 15 minutes of people ball slamming and skiing. And
well, it's a credit, because that's what the guys got us to do, because they were like, it's triple extension. I was like, you don't have to explain to me what you're doing. And then they got the slam balls out, and I was like, and when you slam, you let go of the ball at a certain point. You don't finish all the way through. And I was like, oh my God, you know. If it was because it was them, I normally teach them stuff. I was like,
totally.
Yeah, I get you.
Totally. But it is really funny because I spent the next year refining it, and I did go and learn from Nordic skiers. I've been to Concept. Like, I've worked with as many people who are far smarter than me as possible, and then packaged it up in what I believe is the best way to do it. And it's like, and I just let results speak for themselves. It's like, nobody feels like hurt or broken when they do it my way. Like, they can get faster immediately. It just feels better. And the connection, especially to CrossFit, like, it is so much fun for me to teach ski erg to CrossFit, because it's like, I can talk about triple extension. They know what it is. Like, I can talk about the hollow hold. They know what it is. I can talk about the position you get under the bar, like when you're doing a snatch or a clean. Like, it's like, because that triple extension to the drop position is like what we do on the ski erg. It's like, your arms are doing something different and the load is different, but it's a very familiar patterning to a CrossFitter. And it's like their brain just goes, bing, like all the other things I know are this. So it's the familiarity. It just makes it so much more pleasurable. Whereas on the rower, it's like, I don't have as much ability to do that. Like, rowing is very unusual. It's like a horizontal deadlift. It's like, who's doing the horizontal deadlift? Nobody. And if they are, like, I want to see this contraption.
Sure, you could YouTube that. Someone's doing it. Someone's tried it.
Definitely. You're so right. But yeah, so the ski, and it was really scary. Like, for the next year, like, I got a lot of criticism and a lot of like questioning and everything. And then it was funny because I remember it was like pretty much exactly a year that people just started to like be like, because everyone that came to my seminars were like, well, that feels so much better. Like, you know, my elbow doesn't hurt, all this. Like, straight away, it was just.
You can't argue with that.
What was that?
You can't argue with that. If you're like, they're not they're feeling the right muscles and they're not in pain and they've no
Totally.
shoulder problem, elbow problems. Yeah, you're doing the right job, like 100%.
Totally. And then, and it was mainly people on Instagram that were just really uncomfortable that this random girl from Australia had come up with this, which I was really uncomfortable with. Like, I really didn't want to be the person that came up with it. Like, I love that with rowing, it's like, I know there is a framework with rowing properly on the erg.
Yeah.
And it's, I've totally created my own language around it and my own personality to what I teach, but it's undisputed. Whereas with the ski erg, I always have to preface it with there is Nordic technique. And the reason I don't teach that to the general public is this. And it's like, and I say to people, like, if this doesn't feel right for you, tell me, because that is the best evidence we can have is, does this feel better? Are you not hurting in the wrong places? And is your performance improving?
But I suppose that also comes into the aspect of, are you going to be an Olympic skier? Are you going to be an Olympic rower? Because if you want to be a high-end athlete, CrossFitter, or an Olympic weightlifter, it's all like, as I say to my guys, if you want to look like the top CrossFitter, you want to look like Tia Claire Toomey, are you willing to do the work she does? And because you're not as young as her, or you don't have her mechanics or natural genetics, are you willing to be injured for that? Because to be an athlete, you have to be willing to sacrifice your body for injury, because that's the game. That's the trade-off. No. Exactly. Then let's do it this way.
Yeah.
Because you don't need, you don't need it. And with ski ergs as well, and rowing is, if you want to be the high level at that, you're going to have to put a little bit more sacrifice in the line, because you're going for a gold medal or you're going for something. But for GPP, you're not in pain. You're getting much fitter. You're getting faster times. Maybe, I don't know. I could be onto something.
Totally. So bad. And I love teaching CrossFitters, because the whole, what CrossFit is based on is it's a made up sport. Like, it's a sport where they've gone, this is really cool. This is really cool. This is really cool. Let's adapt it to make our version of it.
Yeah.
And so the whole foundation of it is, like, I mean, Renegade, like, it's like, it is something that isn't, it hasn't been around for 200 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And I love that, because then it's like, it can't be wrong because they've created it. Like, but I completely agree with you. Like, when somebody come to my seminar, and I ran a seminar in New York earlier this year, and it was to teenagers trying to get a college scholarship for rowing. And it was, I loved this gym. They had, like, the mums and dads basically started to train because all the kids were training there and they loved it. And, but I had kids there who rowing was their sport. And so it's like, what I was doing with them on the ergs, it was like, it wasn't relevant to, like, you know, how well they could then do toast bar. It wasn't relevant to any of that. It was, how can we iron out the tiny little things? And I'm super comfortable doing that on the row. But if somebody came to me and they're like, I want to go to the Olympics and Nordic skiing, I was like, I'm from Australia. Like, that is not our jam. Do not take any advice from me about any snow sports at all. But it's like, I would not give them any information.
Yeah.
And I'm like, an Olympic rower came to me, I'd be like, I know way better coaches for you. But you're exactly right. Like, I'm like, if somebody comes to me and they're 14 years old and they're like, I want to go to the CrossFit games, I'm like, okay, well, the first thing you have to be willing to do is hurt more than anybody else. Like, like, your experience has to be like, because that's it with Tia. Like, it's crazy how much she's willing to give to it. Amazing.
And even one of our Emma McQuaid, she won the Irish Championships, so she's gone back to the games, and she was on the local TV, and she was saying, and your man was like, oh, how do you be the best? And he goes, you have to be willing to hurt the most. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, you have to be willing to suffer more than everyone else in the room, and if you can suffer more and you're strong enough, you'll win. And he couldn't. And then the guy, but the guy on the panel was kind of saying, hurt. And he goes, like, literally put your body into so much pain, but you can keep going. And not everyone is built to have that. You can train it to a point, but some people have it. And obviously, like, you've worked with Tia. So, like, when she came to you, did you just kind of go, well, everything you're doing is wrong, now do it my way? Or was she kind of like a bit mind blown, kind of like, oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
like, how did that go down?
So that was the coolest, and that was absolutely the turning point in terms of having credibility as well. Like, it's like once I worked with her and she like really endorsed what I do, from a really genuine way.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, maybe Jane's actually onto something. And that was so cool. Like that, and meeting her, I love her. Like, I love her. I think she is such a great, well, she's such a great role model, but she's just a really nice person too. Anyway, so her husband, coach Shane, got in contact with me, and it was really funny because I remember he wrote like, you're the only ski erg coach we seem to be able to find, so you must be the best.
Well, yes, I am. Thank you.
And I remember laughing because I was like, I am actually the only one. Like, I actually think I'm the best by default because nobody's competing with me.
Don't have to go into that.
But it's so funny. So I was like, well, maybe that shows that I have got guts, because it's like I'm speaking up in a realm that nobody wants to speak up in, because everyone's like, I don't want to touch that. And it's in CrossFit now. And I tell you what, like with the amount of mobility that those CrossFitters have, you can see some pretty weird positions when you put it on slow motion on the skier.
Yeah.
Oh, how did you actually get to like that position? Anyway, so I went up to Queensland to work with Tia, and James Newbury was also there. So he's Australia's fittest man. So he came fifth in the CrossFit this year. He's like such a nice guy as well. Anyway, he was training with Tia up there. So I had both of them. And the first thing I do is I like to see what people currently know or currently do on the ski erg. So I put people on for a 90-second all out, like I warm them up and stuff. And 90 seconds is just that point where you go, oh, this is a sprint, and you sprint, and then you go, oh my God, this kind of sprint. I'm dead now. And so you see everything start to unravel. And I love videoing people in slow motion, so then they can, because as soon as somebody sees themselves, they go, like,
they can connect it.
Totally. Like if you video me squatting in slow motion, I can correct it straight away. Like but my proprioception is quite bad. And it's like, so if you're verbally telling me something, I'm like, okay. And then in my brain, I'm like, I'm already doing that. Like, but then you show me, I go, oh my God, I'm an idiot. But yeah, so first thing Tia was actually doing, and I think she's about 165 centimeters. Like, she's not tall. She's not tiny, but she's like substantially shorter than me. She had her toes on the platform and her midfoot and heel off the back. Okay. And like, so if you can imagine holding onto the ski handles, and then she was coming to a complete 90-degree angle at her hips, and her legs are pretty much straight in the bottom position. And then was like a real kind of wave coming back up again. And I was like, this is the fittest woman in the world, like has access to everything. And she's getting on the ski erg and moving in a way that's like what every person does when they get on there. And it's like, isn't that amazing? Like that somebody with this much knowledge. So first thing I said to her was, I was like, can you set up your feet for me as if you were going to do a snatch? Okay. Cause she went to the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics for weightlifting. And I go, now, why wouldn't you do a snatch with your toes elevated? And she's like, oh, like, why would I do that? And I was like, well, why are you trying to create downward force with your toes elevated and your heels completely no contact with any surface? And she's like, oh. And I go, so why do you stand back so far? And she's like, because I'm worried I'm going to hit my head. The exact answer from everybody. And I was like, isn't it funny that we go, the solution for not hitting my head is let's put our feet in a really, terrible position. And so we worked together for 3 days, and she needed me for like 30 minutes. Like, let's be fair. Like, she's so used to being coached, and she's like an exceptional athlete. But it was really awesome because I got to go back each day and implement the training in amongst her other training, because a huge part of what I teach is I don't want you to have hangover fatigue from the ergs. I want the ergs to become like double unders, in that it's like the skill is hard to develop. Once you develop the skill, it takes conditioning, and then it shouldn't be the most fatiguing part of the workout. And if it is, you're doing it wrong. And like, if you look at Tia, like they did do the marathon row, but it's like, it's very rare that the ski erg, if ever, is the primary tool. Part of their workouts. And so what is so important is that she can get on and off the quickest, and the freshest. And
Yes.
it's like, and so that was really fun. And then ongoing, I've just been doing programming and catch ups and stuff with her. But like that was so good for me as well, because what I learned as well is professional athletes are the easiest to coach, because it's like a kid that's learning.
They're bought in. And
Completely.
I was at a seminar with Coach Dan John. I've been to a few of his, and he goes through the different groups of people that you work with. And one of them is, he goes, when you work with athletes are the easiest because they know their point. They know their A, they know their B, and they're 100% willing to work to it. Whereas you get John, who thinks he's good and has a 60 kilo bench press, and he's all about the gains, and trying to get him to change is like, well, what you need and what you think you want are two completely different things. But yeah, athletes would be, I can totally relate to that. Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. And it's really interesting. Like, it was even like, we tested her 500 meter on the first day and then 500 meter on the last day, which I never do with normal people, because usually they take longer. And it was like, she took like 8 seconds off. Like, she was like 153 on day one, which isn't bad at all. And then 144 on day 3. And I was like, whoa, that's actually, and she got off and talked to me after the second one, whereas the first one rolled around on the ground. And I was like, whoa, that's actually like a really good improvement. And you just see what kind of athlete she actually is.
Yeah.
But it is so funny. I definitely find, like, running seminars, the most difficult people for me to coach are the men that think, you know, their 130 or something is world changing. And like, it is a good number. It is a good number in any gym you go into, but could they do better? Yes. Like, we can all do better. And when I tell them like what the world records are, like people like that, like if they've got a 130 on the row or something, I'm like, do you know the world record's 111? And they're like, but who is this guy? Is he like, you know, 10 feet tall and 500 kilos? Like all this stuff. And I'm like, no, he just is better at it than you. Like, that's so, and it's really funny because I genuinely, like, I started running these seminars thinking that my target market was women. Like I remember working with like a business coach, and I was like, I want to work with women just like me. And she was like, awesome. And so we did all this branding in the beginning, like trying to attract women, and it's like 85% of attendees are men. And I'm like, I'm doing something very wrong. Like, if I'm like constantly talking to these men, and I haven't actually figured out what it is that I'm doing that is attracting all these men to come to the seminars. But I think it's because I do like trash talking people a little bit, like telling them like in a nice way.
Yeah.
That's why seminars in Ireland are so much fun, because people.
Well, that's the one thing Lee said, like, because like Lee's been to 3 seminars now in the last 2 months. Yours was one. There was a weightlifting one, which was good. He took a lot away from it, and then there was the Dan John one, and he was like, it's just banter. It's just like, and Lee's a banter head, like he loves that, and he when he went for after your one, then it was the Olympic lifting one, which is more kind of sit up and take notes and be prim and proper and etiquette and all that, and he was like,
totally,
that's not as much fun. I was like, you will learn more if you're having fun. You will. You absorb it more. You're willing to listen, and if you can't take a joke or make fun of yourself, sure, that's kind of what's the point. There's no need to be that serious.
Exactly, and I do really find that the majority of people that come to my seminar have been convinced by their coach that they need to come, and it's like they actually don't want to be there because they don't like rowing and ski erg, whereas a lot of people that go to Olympic weightlifting genuinely really like it. Like they're like, this is a really cool sport, whereas it's like there's at least 50% people in the room that are like, I am here because David told me to come and I hate rowing. And it's always like a real like challenge. So it's like, so now you have to put up with me because I don't want to be here. There's so many more fun things I could do. So it's like, I have to make it fun because everybody hates what I'm teaching. And it's like, and I know that if I'm learning something and somebody's in front of me, like making fun of some random dude, like then I'm having a great time. So it is really funny because
it keeps the drive for you to want to keep doing it as well. Because if you're going into this meticulous kind of step by step, this is what we got to do, you're going to be, that's emotionally draining. But if you're having a laugh, it's kind of, it's giving you those energy. Like I think that, like, now I must be losing my train of thought there. Sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, what were we saying? Making it fun.
I had a really making it fun and just having fun in it. And then when people, I hear that, so when people, I don't like rowing. I remember not liking the rower until I made the rower my warm up every day for 1,000 meters, and then I started getting more comfortable with the rower. Dave bought his own skier for the gym because I wouldn't buy one, and I went on it, and I was like, I got dizzy because I was bobbing my head like up and down.
Did he tell you why? Did he fix that for you? Has he fixed that for
back then? Now I know why, but back then I didn't know, and I was like, I'm not buying any more. They're stupid machines. And then and it's like wall balls and snatches and stuff. I used to hate all that.
I'm telling him to be quiet. Yeah.
And like everyone hates the snatch and they love the power clean. Why? Because the snatch is more difficult. You only hate what you're shit at.
Totally.
And I say that to my kids. You only hate what you're shit at. And I actually enjoyed the rower. I enjoyed the skier. I despised the assault bike. And I knew why, because it used to make me feel like crap. And then I was like, well, you got to train on it more. I was like, okay. And then I started liking that. And it's that is like, I hate that. It's because you're shit at it. Oh, no, you're shit at it. And if you work on it, you won't hate it as much. And then you never know, you might actually like it.
Totally.
And we're going to have fun on the way.
Exactly. And it's so funny because I was always like, oh, I'm just so bad at gymnastics. My arms and legs are too long to be good at gymnastics. And then I started to like actually get a little bit better at it. I'm still not good at the gymnastics part, but I was like, this is so much fun now. Like, it's like trying to like string, toes to bar together and like getting into handstands. I'm like, as if adults get to do this. Like, this is so good. Like, it's so much fun. But yeah, it completely it. And it is actually hilarious. Like, my favorite people are the ones in the room that stand there and they like usually like have their arms folded and they're like scowling a little bit and they're like really challenging to me. And I'm like, you're going to walk out of here and not be able to wait till there's a workout with rowing in it. Like, it's like a personal challenge. And because I take as well, like I take retention for gyms really seriously. Like, I'm like, I know I owned a gym. Like, I know how important it is to keep your members interested and excited about their training. And that is a huge focus for me because I'm like, if members come and if coaches come, my goal is that coaches can walk out of there with the tools to be able to do what I do, and members cannot wait to get to the gym.
Yeah.
And that's
like we did, I think it was 2-3 months before you were coming to, before we found out about you coming to Ireland, I hosted a rowing and ski workshop for the members. Just me, because I was the only one I got this.
Like, I'll do this. Yep.
And then when the lads trained me after your seminar, 2 weeks later we hosted a row ski workshop and I did not coach it. And I was like, I'm not coaching it. Yous are taking this one. And they were like, what? I said, yeah, you're taking the workshop. And then people were like, how come we're doing this again? Because so many people missed out last time.
Yes.
Because what I taught wasn't correct, and we're going to teach you even better now. What we did do was good, but we're going to do better, like bigger and better. And we had more people attend, and more people loved it. And I gave the guys, because that was the first time the guys really took a workshop at FSM, so they were chuffed with it, and their understanding of it is so still better than mine because they were there with you and they spent the full day. And they learn from you, whereas I'm just picking up what they're throwing at me in a staff training session, which is an hour. So like, this is more of a chat than a podcast, to be honest, because we did actually get around to because I've been ticking off every time any question that I've had, we've ticked off in a roundabout way. But
I can't believe it's like, this is the first time I've ever spoken. It was funny, like within a minute, I was like, oh, whoa, this guy's like going to be my friend. We're so aligned, energy, like with our like energy and enthusiasm and also like values. I can already tell that.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised, instead of it being like a formal chat, we just,
I'm sure you had podcasts. I'm sure you like, sometimes you're just like a next question. Okay. And then the next question, you're literally just asking 10 questions and it's like, well, this is why. Okay.
I know.
And there's no flow. You're going, oh.
I know. And then you're like, oh my God, I've got to like keep an eye on the questions in case there's like an awkward silence, and I know like how to try and like work it in.
Yeah.
So funny. I do miss podcasting. It was so much fun. But it's like I got to the point where I was like running my seminars like elsewhere all the time. And so the podcast I was putting out were just bad. Like I was like, it had become like a priority that I was like, that was just number 6 or something. And I was like, I don't want to do something that I'm not proud of, like especially something out there for people to listen to. So I was like, I do love podcasts. So that's
I used to have one a while back, and I was just interviewing CrossFit coaches, and it was like, so when you open your gym, and like it was good, and then I got really busy, and like yourself, I couldn't commit to doing it, and if I couldn't, like the original was like, I'm gonna do 50 shows, and after 50 shows we'll see what happened, and I struggled to get the last 6 shows done, but I said I'd commit to do them, and I did them, and then I just stopped doing them, and because I was just bored, and I didn't I like talking to people and I like doing podcasts, but it wasn't there. So then when I decided, and I just didn't have the time, like the company was kind of going down, it was in a bit of a shitter, and like I really needed to focus. But then obviously now we've built a team and we're doing a lot better. And I said, right, I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to bring it back. I want it to be different. So it's talking about anything and everything. Like I'm talking like body confidence, stuff that really gets under my skin. And then just like talking to like people like yourself, because when I heard about like I knew there was rowing workshops and skier. And then when the lads were like, it was, especially Lee, Dave's not over talkative, great coach, but he wouldn't, doesn't, he can be hard sometimes.
I got a smile out of him and I was like, yes!
You're lucky. You see, you should check out our Instagram. We got waxed last night.
Did he? Actually, I saw that.
Got his chest waxed, him and Lee,
Yes.
For charity. We made no money last night, but we all got waxed. Yeah. As you do. And they were like, everyone was like, why'd you get waxed? Stephen just said we're all getting waxed, and no one would say no. So it was like, all the coaches got waxed last night. It was entertaining. But Lee and they did their chests. Oh man, it was hilarious.
Oh my God. That is so funny. Oh my God.
But yeah, my kind of last question for you, first real question actually, and I'll actually get the question out before I get sidetracked into something. But you have you've firstly solid for being an aerobic instructor.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
yes.
I think we should bring it back.
Yeah,
aerobic ski.
Imagine if I put it in as the warm up. That would be so. Next time I come to Ireland, I'm doing that as the warm up for Project Row and Ski, and people will.
I'll be the guy in the front.
Yes.
How did he learn it? It's natural, mate. It's natural.
That is so funny.
See, like you aerobics, you had your own gym, studied law. You've like kind of a Machiavellian of you've done a lot of strings and the feathers in the hat and stuff. But you've traveled the world, but for educating so many like general people, coaches, athletes, how has that impacted you as a person? How have you evolved from, because you work with people that have companies and gyms and they're struggling and they're going through and you've been there and you decided to walk away and you felt you would to go somewhere else. So they're in that realm. You've people that like the average population, and then so how was training all of that, like this kind of your journey to where you are now impacted you as a person?
It's really, really, really good question. It's funny because I never saw this as what I would be doing. When I started running my seminars, I kind of just did it because I wish that there had been something like that when I was a full-time trainer. And so, and I knew that the main people I knew that owned gyms in the very beginning were the people that I'd met through all my Jim Jones courses. And nobody in Australia had done Jim Jones really, like maybe like 10 people in total. So the very first tour I went on was through the US, and it just then came about that became the really normal way for me to run them. It was internationally. And then I realized culturally in Australia, people aren't that ready to learn from somebody else or get somebody into their gym. So I've run less seminars in Australia than like most other countries, which is crazy to me. But how it's affected me is I've gone from being, and I kind of call it the Peter Pan gym owner, like the gym owner that opened a gym to have the best training facility in the world for them to train at. Like they're the one that doesn't want to grow up, the one that is like, I can do this the best, which is, you've got to have that attitude when you open a gym. But I've gone from being that person that was absolutely the believer in my method, to now like, without any doubt, there are so many smarter people than me in the world, and I want to learn from every single one of them. And it's funny because it's like, I think that one of the reasons we connect so well is because you have that exact innate like drive to learn from everybody, and because you know that you can create the best experience in people in your gym by learning from everybody else and applying it with your personality. And what I've come to learn, the more and more gyms I travel to, is how many gyms out there are still based on the ego of the gym owner, which is who I was when I was running a seminar. So I think the biggest thing that's changed for me is how much I've been humbled. And it's because I'm constantly like week after week after week walking into these gyms, and I have to give myself a pep talk before I go into every single gym, because I'm like, do the whole, oh my God, what if they think that I'm really bad at this? What if they think that I'm fat? What if they're like, oh, like all the stupid things that you say to yourself. And every time I have to walk in, and every single time I go, oh my God, this is the right place for me to be in. Like, I love being in these environments where people genuinely want to make other people better. And it's like, but still, before I walk into every gym, I'm like absolutely terrified. So what it's done for me is it's put me out of my comfort zone week after week after week. But yeah, there is a real divide in the fitness industry, and that's what my analysis is so far. There's like the ego-driven gym, and then there's the gym that is genuinely making people better. And I find that the people who like come to my seminars, like, because I'll often drop into other gyms as well when I'm somewhere, just to like see what the climate is in the area. And it's like, it's so interesting, the kinds of gyms that are like, oh, tell me about what you do. And then there's the kinds of gyms that are like, oh yeah, we don't need to do that. And I'm like, you're not going to survive. Like those ego-driven gyms just aren't going to survive. And you see so many gyms closing down. But yeah, so what I've learned about myself is that I was always so scared that I needed like a label on me to explain to people what I do. Like, it's like, oh, I'm a physiotherapist, or I'm a lawyer, or I'm a gym owner, or I'm a trainer. I always wanted there to be a label. And it's like, now it's like, I still have no idea what to say to people. Like, if I go somewhere and they're like, oh, so, you know, for example, I went into Lululemon when I was in Dublin, and they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, because I was saying I was traveling there for work, and I'm like, I run seminars on rowing. And they're like, oh, so you're a rower? And I'm like, no. And then it becomes this like, always becomes an awkward conversation. And now I don't need to have a label. I still get really awkward. I'd still love to say to somebody, you know, like, I'm something. I still don't know what that would be. But yeah, so I guess that didn't really answer your question very well. I guess
eventually you'll be like, well, I'm Jane Erbacher. Or so I got it wrong. I knew it. And they go, oh my God, it's you. And you have to say, what do? You just have to say your name. And you'll be like, yeah. And then,
like Madonna.
And then eventually, I'm Madonna. You'll be like, oh yeah, I get you now. Yeah. You don't even have to explain it.
Totally. Meanwhile, like, I came to my dad's house this morning because I just moved house this week and we don't have Wi-Fi yet. And I was so nervous that like it would drop out or something. So I come to my dad's house, and it's so funny because I have a sister, and I'll ring my dad and I'll be like, hey Dad, and he'll go, which one is this? So like, My dad doesn't even know who I am.
He keeps you humble. He keeps you humble. Yeah. Oh, you're Jane? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He calls the ski erg the skirg, and he always goes that bloody skirg because he's got a ute. I don't know if you call them utes, but like a truck.
Yeah.
So he ergs around for me if I need him to help me move them to seminars. He's like 76. He used to come to my aerobics classes, and he's so funny. And he hates the ski erg because he's always has to help me move them.
Well, that's a proper hatred because they're awkward machines to move.
I think he still thinks it's a weights machine you lift, like, because that's what he uses it for.
He's getting all jacked from. I get big from skier. What?
Totally. So yes, I think that what I've learned, like just answering that question again, because I'm still thinking about it, is I've definitely learned that like the limits we put on ourselves, like, are completely arbitrary. Like it's sorry.
Sorry. You go into the office that way? Yep. Some guy at my door.
Oh yeah, totally. Some guy that like works in the
well, yeah, he's not a member, so I don't know.
Oh, okay, so it is actually some guy. Yeah. We just put these random limits on ourselves. Like it's really funny because like my brother and sister are both lawyers, and so in my family it was really like you should be a lawyer. That's a really great career. And now it's like I think lawyers are amazing, but it's like every single day and week I get to do the stuff that makes me the happiest. Like I get to meet really cool people, learn from people, go to gyms, travel the world, like, and keep upskilling myself. And like I think that I'm so excited that I didn't settle for something that I thought was going to be great. And I just kind of like did my own thing. So
and that's I like that because there is no label for you, but you're doing so much and you are associated with certain things. But again, I don't even think you'd be able to label it. I think you'd just be given it, and then that'll become the thing. It sounds like it'll be something like that. It's like, oh, it's Jane, and I'm not going to try and pronounce your second name again. And
Jane, totally.
And then and then everyone's like, oh yeah. And it'll just be it'll just become something that way. But Jane, obviously, I've taken up most of your morning so far, and it's flown in because I tell you, some podcasts drag, and this is not dragged at all. It's been great. I wish all podcasts are as flowy as this.
Yeah. We should have a call every week. You put me in the best mood. I'm like gonna go for a run or something.
So
my pajamas.
Well, whatever works. It could be a new trend. You never know.
Yeah.
But you obviously we have your kind of like, where can people find you if they want to know more about what you're doing, and are you coming back to Europe?
Yes, definitely. I'm definitely coming back to Europe. Definitely. What I'm trying to do for 2020 right now is I'm building out the seminars a little bit better. So I want to have the fundamentals seminar, and then I also want to have advanced, however you say it. And I should learn how to say it before I actually deliver it, right? But what I want for that second one, the advanced, I want there to be actual homework people do before it, coming into it, so that once they've come to fundamentals, they can come to the second one and I've like trained and studied, and like they're kind of tested in person. And then I also want there to be another seminar that's like a collaboration seminar. Like I really, like, I've wanted to do this for a really long time, but I want it to be a team seminar with other coaches and people who feel like what they have to present is really, really valued for people. One of my, like, the selfish reason for that is how awesome is it going to be for me to be learning from these people all the time. And then the second thing is, I know how hard it is to start and see through a seminar model. Like the first 18 months for me absolutely ran at a loss. Like it was costing to go to people's gyms. And it's like, I don't make heaps of money now, but I make enough to be able to do what I need to do and enjoy it. And that's really important to me. But I understand that other people who have so much knowledge, great presentation skills, don't understand how to create the model. And that's something I've been able to do. So I really want there to be like ergs and bells and ergs and bars and ergs and body weight and like all this kind of like you sign up for a weekend and it's conditioning for CrossFit type stuff. So that's what I want to do. So next year, the idea was to create dates, because right now it's basically like a gym will be like, hey, we want you to come. And I'll be like, awesome, when? And then I'll just like go. And so this last year has been quite hilarious because I get so excited when a gym is excited about what I do. So I just make it happen. And then I'm like, I think I can do this better. Like, I think I can not go on 4 long haul flights in a year. So like return flights. So next year I'm definitely coming back. I'm trying to figure out the best time of year. It generally is when weather's really bad wherever I'm going, because
you're not coming back to Ireland because it's always bad.
No, I can come back anytime to Ireland, but I love when the weather's bad because then people don't like spending all day inside. So I am, so it's actually, so people are always like, why do you always travel in like spring and autumn? And I'm like, well, I like those seasons, but usually people are not doing anything else. Whereas summer, people go out and do stuff. They're like, why would I spend all day? Especially because my market is people who hate the ergs. So I'm like, I'm taking you out of the sunshine, taking up your whole weekend, doing something you hate. You should come. So my plan was the US in like February, March, April, and then Europe in like a little bit later. So maybe September. But I haven't built that out yet, but definitely coming back. Like my favorite seminars have been in Europe, like without a doubt. Like that, the seminars in Ireland have been so funny. Like I still remember on that Saturday that the guys came, like we were all laughing at least 50% of the time. Like, and it was just like, I get to have so much fun. Yeah. So definitely, like there's definitely been seminars where people don't crack jokes and don't laugh at themselves. And like, it can still be a learning experience, but I walk away and I worked so hard. So I'm definitely coming back, and there's definitely like some different options coming up. Super. And if obviously you have a good connection with Dave McConkey, but if they can't host, FSM will definitely come in and we'll be up for hosting you in Ireland. But obviously, Dave, I'd love to go to Dave's gym and learn all from it as well. But obviously, like just throwing it out there. That is amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's so funny because like I absolutely love David. Another guy that came to the seminar said the same thing, and I'm like, isn't it cool that somebody is so respected that people are like, honestly, I don't want to step on your toes if this is. Yeah, I'm not going to come in like, forget Dave. I'll get you a better deal on a hotel. And I think that Dave is so funny because like the first time he was like you in that he's like, I love the roar and ski, and then he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, everybody. And I was like, you haven't done them a disservice, but he was all like weight of the world on his shoulders. Sorry. But yeah, he's awesome. So I'm really like, I want to come back to Ireland. So if I keep knocking on Dave's door and he says no, I'm going to knock on your door very, very loudly. No problem. No problem at all. Jane, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you for being on the show. And guys, if you want to follow Jane, all her links to the Renegade website, still what you're kind of posting stuff on? I'm trying not to use it. You can totally go there, but I won't be updating anything. Okay. Just your kind of Instagram and stuff? Sorry. My name is just my website, so janeerbacher.com. Okay. So we'll put all that in the show notes. So links if you want to find out more about Jane. Again, if you enjoyed this as much as I actually did enjoy, this is probably one of my most enjoyable podcasts I've done. Please like and subscribe. I can guarantee this will not be replicated but every single podcast we do, but we'll try our best to stay to this standard. Okay? Yeah. Like I came in thinking I was good. But yeah, guys, like and subscribe. We're on YouTube, Podbean, and Spotify. Jane, thank you very much for being on the show. I hope you have a great day today, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. Thank you so much. I had a great time. Cool.
You're listening to the Live, Lift, Play podcast.